welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. I am Bishop Darrell Watkins, the senior minister here at the Sunshine Cathedral. And with me today is Sunshine Cathedral's executive minister, he's also my husband, Bishop Robert Griffin, and Sunshine Cathedral's Minister of Connections, the Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell. Visit sunshinecathedral.org to learn more about our progressive faith community and how you can be a part of it no matter where you live in the world. And if you live in South Florida, be sure to check out the Sunshine Cathedral Center for the Performing Arts, offering entertainment for the LGBTQ+ community to benefit the LGBTQ+ community. If you enjoyed the Queer God Squad, please share this or other episodes with your friends, family, and social media communities. At Sunshine Cathedral, we're here to tell you that you are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. Carter was first president to crack the door open for queer folk. The administration of Jimmy Carter, the United States 39th president, became the first to invite lesbian and gay rights activists to the White House to discuss federal policies with regard to ending employment discrimination against gays and lesbians in the federal government. As the former president, Mr. Carter became a prominent voice in support of LGBTQ+ rights. He advocated for marriage equality at a time when most national leaders still opposed it. For decades after he left the White House, he continued to model public service with his work for Habitat for Humanity and the Carter Presidential Center. Carter was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, author, person of faith, and generally considered to be one of the most effective former presidents in our history. He also outlived all other presidents so far, dying at the age of 100 a year after his wife Roslyn passed away. President Carter said this about homosexuality in a 2012 interview. Homosexuality was well known in the ancient world, well before Christ was born, and Jesus never said a word about homosexuality. In all of his teachings about multiple things, Jesus never said that gay people should be condemned, end quote. You know, I have a lot of respect for President Carter. I was reminiscing with my family recently about the presidents we were born under. And although I wasn't born under President Carter, he is the first president that I remember in the White House as being president. I was born in 1967. When he became president, I was 10 years later. There was some vagueness around the president.
I remember,
a little vagueness.
I remember Nixon. You don't remember Nixon? Because I remember he was scary to me.
Well, that's probably why they didn't teach anything about him. I'll talk about him.
He was on the TV. Who's that scary man?
I think the only thing I remember from the Nixon was the White House lift off in the airplane, and he does the wave off and everything. And it wasn't until I really started paying attention, I guess, to politics was under President Carter. With the energy crisis and the Iran-Contra stuff, and getting one of the hostages back, and all that costs a lot of stuff around everything, and the peace accord at Camp David, just tons of stuff that he did. But later in life, he went on to do so much more. I think being president limited him at two thoughts around that. I think before he became president, awesome guy. Becoming president just gave him the platform to become a more awesomer guy, more humanitarian in the world. I think the president limited him in what he really wanted to do. But after the president, there was no stopping him. And also Roslyn, there was no stopping. They were kind of like the power couple from the administration. And the good he did as an ambassador, an ambassador role as president, representing the United States in different countries and getting different things done. Again, Habitat for Humanity, and actually just being a decent human being. He lived the life that he believed. He believed the life that he lived, and a lot of that was based in Scripture, his own understanding of Scripture. And not only this, but he acted upon it. And I think one of his philosophy was, do no harm to people, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And I think he kind of lived that as his philosophy. We have a good friend who was also part of the Carter administration. She was one of the first women, what's called the Carter women. She was one of the first one. And so just having listened to her over the years talk about what it meant to be a part of the Carter administration, kind of some of the behind the scenes things that President Carter had to kind of step back in order to get done, or, just some things that happened behind the scenes, it just made me appreciate him and his leadership even more. But again, I think he was, for me, the benchmark of what presidencies look like. Either in office,
can or should,
or out the post office. And so I think he raised the bar at that point in time for me about this is how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in the 4th grade when he was elected, the fall semester, obviously. And I was in the 8th grade when his successor, Reagan, was elected. And so I remember that, very clearly. I mean, I was 10, and then, 10 to 14. And so I remember that very clearly. And that was the first one I was paying attention to. I was aware of, I saw this guy playing golf on the TV once in a while. Well, that was President Ford. And I heard this guy with this scowling face and gruffy voice. Well, he seemed scary to me. Well, that was Nixon. But Carter was the first time that I knew what was going on, that I hearing opinions and all of that. And, but he was always smiling. He had a rally in my hometown. And let's see, when he was running for re-election. And he came. Now, after the hostage situation, he wouldn't campaign anymore. So people would campaign on his behalf. So this must have been before that. Must have been early on. But anyway, he came, and Governor Clinton was there, and Johnny Paycheck was the entertainment. And it was at a factory where my father worked. He was a union steward at the factory, and it was at that factory, and all these union people. And we had VIP tickets because my dad was, the labor guy. And so I just remember, so that's one of the reasons Carter sticks in my mind, because I was 30 feet away from him at this, special event, and the governor, and who would later be president. And so it was, so I have this very fond, sort of folksy memory of him. But then certainly after, in his decades after being president, he was just humanitarian, building houses, overseeing foreign elections, negotiating peace, teaching Sunday school all the while. I mean, he was just a good person. And I wish we had more of that. He was a person of faith. He was a public servant. He was a peacemaker. To my mind, he was a hero.
Yeah.
And hero doesn't mean perfect. Hero doesn't mean you agree with everything. But I agree with probably 87% of whatever he said or did, and admired him as a person 100%. And so I'm going to stick with hero. And I think it's appropriate that heroes, when heroes die, that our national flag is flown at half-mast. I know there was some groaning and grousing about it, but I think it's 100% appropriate that a former president, and just really a global leader and role model of being a public servant. Yeah, he needs, and to live 100 doing it. Yeah, that needed honor. And anyone who would begrudge that, I think that speaks ill of them. And those who begrudged it, I could probably speak ill of them anyway, because because I do not regard them as heroes. But that's another story, isn't it? I'm just here to say I love me some President Carter.
Right.
Bless his memory.
Well, I'm just a couple years older than both of you. So I remember Jimmy Carter. I remember Nixon. I remember the Watergate. I remember all of that stuff. I was too young to really understand what it was about, but I remember it, and I remember his resignation. And then there was a brief time for Jerry Ford. I don't remember much about that, but I remember Jimmy Carter and how impressed I was. Even at that young age, I was probably like junior high when he was elected, and I was so impressed by him. And I read something recently that, a lot of people are kind of like, well, Jimmy Carter wasn't the best president, but how great he was afterwards. And the reason that happened, they said, was that because he didn't lead like Nixon. He was a more gentle human. Do you know what I mean? He was a humanitarian. He led that way. And so if you were looking for somebody who was like Richard Nixon, you weren't going to find that in Jimmy Carter. And so some people looked at that as a failing when it really wasn't.
Yeah, no, I don't see his administration as failure. In fact, he did a rescue mission.
Yes.
And they said, I forget the number, but they said 6 helicopters will do it. He said, well, then make it 7.
Yeah.
And it should have actually been 8. If it had been 8, it would have worked. So it came very, very close. And secondly, they got through that crisis without a single person dying.
I remember that.
And that's due to his leadership. And then, of course, they were released as they were changing hands, so that nobody got the credit.
I remember that.
But the successor kind of got the credit anyway. But he and the economy was bad. It was bad all over the world. He did. I don't know that any one person could have fixed it. I do know that he did everything that he asked people to do.
Yes.
That the thermostat was down in the White House. They were wearing sweaters. That anything he asked, he modeled. And so I don't know. I do know that my family depended a lot on certificates of deposits in those days. That was their main thing. And in those days, they made more than they've ever made since. Now, that was because of inflation or whatever. But so I'm just saying that I'd take him back.
Yeah.
Over, I mean, in fact, almost everyone other than Obama that's followed him, I would take him.
I absolutely agree. I have such respect for the work that he did with Habitat for Humanity. And it wasn't just him, it was his wife, and they were out there, and it was very hands-on, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
It wasn't just delegating and standing and photo op and that kind of thing. They were out there, and they were making that kind of thing happen. No. Don't even get me started on that. But then the additional work that they did with the Carter Center and overseeing the voting in other countries and that kind of thing. What a powerful, positive impact. I mean, wouldn't it be incredible if all leaders could be like that?
You talk about a legacy.
Yeah, really.
And the bully pull point, just using the mic to even, even on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to live to be able to vote for the vice president, Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
What, that statement alone from that mouth meant so much.
Yeah. I mean, we was visiting the Carter Center a few years ago, and one of the docents was talking about projects that was happening around the Carter Center. Because like, well, is the president by chance coming in today? Well, no, he was just here yesterday or something. And so they tell the story about things being repaired around the Carter Center. And President Carter wouldn't let things be sent out to be repaired. If
he could do it, he wouldn't hire people.
He wouldn't hire people.
He would show up with a screwdriver.
Yeah. He said, "Oh, set the chair over there, and I'll come out and fix them." Like some chair is broken. No, I'll come fix them. I just said, and that's just the kind of guy he
Light
was.
switches.
Like if something was wrong at the Carter Center, he was the project manager for getting it repaired.
Here comes this 90-year-old with a screwdriver. It's like, we could just call somebody. Nah, I'm here.
So just that kind of down to earth, still in touch with things that no one, nothing is outside of my grasp. I can do, and that's just the kind of guy he was. And he was a sailor, so he go Navy.
Not just a sailor, he was a nuclear engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of a genius.
Naval Academy.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of remember, was it in Sacramento where he was on the podium and he left the stand and someone said, "Go back and say vote no against the Briggs Initiative." And I just kind of remember that was one of those moments of history. Like he's just been an advocate for all the right things all along history. And so kudos to President Carter and all that he did and the legacy he leaves behind.
Yes.
Yeah, and that you really try to live your life in such a way. I'm not sure that I have. I'm not sure that many people have, but try to live your life in a way that when you're gone, people talk about you like this.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's heaven. Well, that's today with the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's leading progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together.
We are all in this together. Remember that.
You are God's miracle, not God's mistake. Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.